Greetings, old friends. Welcome to my over-the-drink review of the Romance of Man Hibana Tachi. And this is a new series of review videos I just concocted for this channel. A very casual, over-drink style, informal review of swords I find a lot of value, but don't have a lot of time for detailed historical breakdowns. So let's take a look at this Tachi, sent graciously by Romance of Man over a cup of sake. So this is the Hibana Tachi by Romance of Man, and this is one of their newer offerings. It's made of totally non-fancy mono steel, just very honest, high carbon, high manganese, and high silicon spring steel. Well heat treated, proven to be highly durable in the past, and also it has used its additional honing on the edge. I don't really understand the point of this process at Romance of Man, because every single sword is sent my way has proven to be extra sharp. Definitely a joy to handle, joy to cut with. Not particularly sure the point about spending extra time and effort honing the edge, and you can see this one exactly the same as the Fukyo Katana they sent me a year and a half ago. Definitely has used some additional honing near the edge. You can see the sign of higher grit polishing over the edge. But I would say this, even their box standard spring steel katana or their differentially hardened clay tempered katanas, they definitely have adequate edges. It's never a question about the sharpness or the quality of apexing. But I do appreciate this additional attention over the edge. I just personally can't really see the difference. But this one differs from the other offerings at Romance of Man, as this one is made as a traditional Tachi. Not sure whether you can see it clearly on screen. Has a deep-sori. Deep-sori. And I have some deep-sori swords in the past. This one definitely tops the rest of them. You can see it has the traditional continuous curvature. I wouldn't say it's completely uniform across the entire sword from the butt of the hilt to the tip. There seem to be some changes on the upper portion. The curvature seems to be less, and near the hilt there seems to be more curvature. And if you compare this to very standard Uji-katana style katana, and you will see the edge of the katana curves a lot more, and you can see here, if you rest this on a flat surface, you can see here, the peak is clearly almost 3 centimeters. Then what a straight spine would have been. So quite a peak, I would say a deep-sori.
I'm the peak of human evolution, and you're just a Capobarnia.
And I'm not sorry about that. No pun intended. It's an interesting experience cutting with deep-sori swords, especially one with differentially curved sword, right? From the lower portion of the blade to the hilt, you can see this one, the tsuka of the sword is also very curved. You can see this one, horizontally is flat, right? You can see, hey, it's a deep curve. So this creates a paradox. If you rotate the sword too much, the butt of the hilt will collide with your forearm. Therefore, it pretty much enforces the grip of keeping the blade at an angle when you cut with it, sacrificing some reach with additional slicing capabilities. So something you cannot cleave through in one stroke, you can just drag across the surface of the blade. This has the advantage of freeing the blade as you pass through the target, so it's very useful on horseback cavalry actions, right? Which is why most Tachi were used by mounted samurai warriors. But on foot, it can still utilize that slicing capability a lot. If you cut against someone with fabric protection, that's gonna help a lot, the slicing. But it will sacrifice the reach for sure, because you don't really rotate the sword completely forward to maximize the reach. Not to mention that this sword curve backward, so it naturally already isn't as long as it can be given the the amount of steel. But that's a sacrifice you have to make. In confined spaces, it's very standard length katana or tachi will do pretty well. You just don't want a very long-bladed nodachi odachi to fight indoors. Well, there are schools you can utilize the long blade, subduing your opponents like over a cup of tea or rather sake. And you can even do that being petite female practitioner, right? Like a daughter or wife of a samurai warrior in the past. Sometimes you do need to subdue bad actors over tea or wine, so that's useful. But of course, having shorter blades will be easier to draw, and that's the point of katana, right? Like it's everyday carry, self-defense tool rather than a battlefield sword, even though it can be achieved to a certain degree with nodachi. By the way, nodachi means field swords, so that already tells you it's for battlefield usage, not really indoors, like confined spaces, self-defense or assassination or taking hostages, right? So this kind of sword will be ideal. Having a deep-sori will facilitate the slicing capability, so that's definitely cool, and this shows in test cutting. Especially if you have extra sharp edges like this one does. Your edge just wouldn't get caught on clothing, fabric, in modern senses, tatami, fabric, or bottle, cartons, which is also made of paper. So this comes in very handy. Plus, we all agree that swords with deeper curvatures are sexy. And I think that's not controversial to say. Nice. Whoa. See, this is super clean, right? Look at all the incision. There's no tearing or anything wound of the bottle. And it's all smooth. It's a very well sharpened Look, that rising cut was beautiful. It's a hard bottle, yet this sword handled it with grace. So it's really easy to generate speed, right? For this one, you just need speed, sharpness, good edge alignment, everything, because you are overcoming gravity while cutting through such hard material. So I'm really pleased with the result. If you look at the blade, very simple. There's no hada, no hamon. There's no differentially hardening processes. Like I said, this is modern heat treatment at its best. Very durable, especially concerning the additional honing of the edge creates a little bit of apple seating, which is different from niku. Niku is like the entire bevel from the shinogi line to the ha, and it will be a convex grind to add some additional steel meat behind, not just behind the edge, over the entire bevel, so the sword will resist bending right, or shattering. But having simply apple seating just make the edge less prone to chipping or rolling, which is, kind of a Achilles heel for Japanese swords because their edges are usually refined. So in that case, if you cut against something hard accidentally, bone, opponent's steel, whether it's blade or edge or flat, or the tsuba, it gets guarded, or pole arms, you just don't want the edge to be very fragile, even though they can cut better. So I would say that this one definitely strikes the balance between performance and durability. And it has a deep bohei, pretty wide and deep bohei across the entire length of the blade. Romance of Man's work usually are nimble, right? Most of their models are a joy to handle, but this one is, just like the other swords. Its weight is below average, not a featherweight, but it's below average, right? And the point balance is also pretty close. You can see about not even 4 inches from the tsuba. So it's just very fast, very easy to maneuver. I think the bohei reduces a lot of weight, but also the lack of niku. And that can be excused. Using modern steel, they are already spring steel, even though they're pretty rigid. Given the length is pretty short, you can see very little spring. I mean, even traditionally made clay-tempered blades have some spring, right? Because the geometry is so thick on Japanese swords, they tend to not spring, not flex. But there are swordsmiths doing some destruction tests on their own Nihonto, and proves that they do have spring, just to a lesser degree. So there's nothing really. You can see the yokote is cosmetic. I can't really feel it, so it's just different polishing directions and brings up this cosmetic yokote. The kisagi is the standard true kisagi, medium length. So the thrusting capability is not really enhanced, especially it doesn't have a reinforced tip, but it's capable. It's not one of those rounded kisagi. Those are difficult to thrust with against any resistance. The thick closing can stop the thrust to a certain extent, right? So very standard Tachi, nothing to really marvel at. No hamon, no hada, not even geometric yokote, but just silhouette, the curvature of the blade is a joy to look at. And I think even though it's not the most traditional Kotō style sword, with differentially curved, very, very curved handle, tsuka, this one is, the curvature in the hilt and the lower portion of the blade is strong enough. It's pretty iconic. The form is pretty iconic to traditionally made Nihonto. So I'm pretty happy with that. And the performance is definitely a joy. I cut with my son, and he used this one as well while help filming. And I would say that even a child who doesn't cut very frequently, well, he cut with other katanas, but he doesn't really cut with other swords really that much. Maybe some hand-and-half European swords, but he does pretty well with this one, even rising cuts. So I can say, the drawing, the fit of the habaki is pretty good. And the choice, it's good. All the fittings, koshirai components, they have the fancy aspect of those handachi or tachi style fitting. Nothing is really left plain, but they're not really geometric or sculpted, right? That would increase the cost a lot. This one just won't cost under $300. So have a tachi with authentic geometries and the decoration on the hilt and the scabbard costs this little and performs this well, handles with ease. It's really a blessing. So I would think that they did the right choice, did the right thing in terms of choice for each component. And I have seen this tsuba before on one of the claw hammer sword. That one has this Tachi style tsuba but somehow it didn't get the Fujikashira correctly. I don't know whether that makes it Hadachi or something, but anyway, this one, I think the casting quality is just superior to the claw hammer sword, and that one, it costs a lot more than this one, around $400, $500, almost double the cost, the price of this one. So I would say this is a good deal. You can see the habaki has some, I don't know whether it's a foliate pattern or raindrop, but it's just not plain. And the fit of the habaki finally is good for Romance of Man swords. So for quite a while, Romance of Man products have ill-fit habaki. They're not loose, but they just have a little bit gap here and there. And you can see on this one, it's mostly eliminated. Fits very well, very tight. And if you sheath, well, I should sheath it this way, right? So Tachi. Sheath it. Yeah. It fits pretty well. I would say, you know, the Fujikashira and fittings on this Tachi style Scabbard, they are fitted well enough. But there are some small gaps here and there because these rings, metal rings, they're not really secure onto the scabbard with its indent. You usually have inlays for you to put these rings in place. Obviously, that will increase the cost of manual labor hours. This one works for sure, and it's not really, you know, sticking out that much. It looks okay, so there's not a lot to complain about. And the color palette, you know, golden, yellowy golden color, it's not very gaudy, and it fits the theme of Hibana, which is a kind of like a small golden yellowish flower. It fits well enough. I mean, I've seen this set of koshirai before, and I think they market it as plum flower, so they kind of reuse this because I think the flower petals look very similar to Hibana. And you also have the leather, I think hide, raw hide carrying belt. And actually, Tachis are supposed to be carried this way on your back. So it has a carrying system, which is good. It definitely adds to the cost. Imagine like generic scabbard, just plain scabbard, right? And this one also has some painted Hmong symbol of samurai's household onto the scabbard, very common for Tachi style decoration. And the Hmong on this particular saya, the triple hollyhock leaves inside a ring, is the family crest of Tokugawa Shogun, one of the most powerful daimyo families in Japanese history. The texture is called nashijinuri. So nashijinuri basically just means pear smear style texture on the surface of saya. Imagine they make some mashed pear and has this little bit rough texture, right? Raspy texture. It feels comfortable. It's better than the very glossy lacquered scabbards, but I think it has enough traction. It's not slippery, and it's better looking than the stonewash style scabbard. Since Tachis are supposed to be decorative, you know, it's not really the more stereotypical Zen style katana saya, right? So this works very well. And one thing noteworthy is that traditionally, the width of the tsuka has to match the scabbard. So usually on Tachi, tsuka gets a little bit wider, but this can be offset by a waist geometry. If you make it wider here to match the width of the saya, make it flush. You can see here that the saya is still a little bit wider, but it's not noticeable, right? But if you have a waist geometry, it will offset that for sure. However, it didn't really accomplish that. The tsuka's width is rather uniform. And I think that's just challenging to do on such a curved tsuka, right? Because you have to worry about the curvature on both. On this side will be more curvature. This, you know, the lower part of the tsuka has less curve, so it's a really difficult thing to manage. I think it's fine, but it's on the girthier side for sure. The circumference is pretty thick on this one. Definitely noticeable than the average katana, but it's ergonomic enough for you to hold on to it. There's a lot of texture with itomaki. Also has this yellowy golden color. Not very shiny. I think it's tastefully done, right? One thing it can be improved is this ledge, and I don't think this is a ledge from the panel of the samigawa, because they're not even. There's not a straight line that goes. It's just uneven. So I think this is the hishigami, the paper wedge triangle placed under the ito knots to make them tighter. So they're very tight for sure. So achieve its functional goals, but there's some aesthetically unpleasing aspect of this hookah. I think it can be improved upon. I really love this sake. Overall, it creates this kind of hexagonal shape and geometry on this hookah. It's not necessarily a bad thing because many Chinese swords, European swords have hexagonal cross section on the grip, so it doesn't have to be uncomfortable. But it's not very traditional for Japanese swords. The shock, the aesthetic element of this ledge, and it's not very even either. If it was even, I would have saw this is the panel edges of the samigawa panel, because I don't think this is a full wrap. But it's not. It's just hishigami, the paper triangle. But it has achieved its intended purposes, and I can see some reshaping near the kashira. The ito gets a little bit bunchier to make a flush with this Tachi style kashira, which is called kabutogani as a component of tachikoshirae to distinguish from the katana style koshirae. And I definitely prefer this style of kashira. I don't know why modern sword makers just don't like using this, even if like a very plain iron unadorned kashira like this will definitely make the sword more appealing, to me at least. But I get that it could increase the cost. And you can see here the way it's secured is not a traditional going through the hole of the kashira. There's a loop and on each side, so it's tied to that one, secured, which is probably better. It's gonna hold the kashira in place. And there's another loop, metal loop here. You can move it around, get it out of the way. And this can serve even a little bit as a hand stop. If your hand slides down, this creates a little bit additional thickness geometry for your hand, prevent your hand from sliding off easily. So I think the whole sword definitely realized the spirit of Tachi or Kotō, performs well, joy to handle, aesthetically it screams Kotō and Tachi, older style. And to make it this affordable at $250, it's a triumph. Where else are you gonna get Tachi that handled this well, durable, but only costs this amount, but still have all the visual elements? It's very difficult. I mean, there are places you can go. Like I get Ryan sword Tachi, and it's long. It's the Nagasa is 31 inches, so definitely longer than this one. And that one's kind of affordable too, also differentially hardened, but it just doesn't have this deep-sori, right? There's a little bit more sori because the blade gets longer. If it's curved, it naturally has more sori from the tip to the base of the blade, right? But it's not as prominent as this one. So I'm very happy with this offering, and thank you, Henry K, for sending this sword my way, and my son and I had a lot of fun cutting with it. I would say this is a great deal. If you're ever interested in practicing with Tachi style swords, definitely give Romance of Man a shot. It won't set you back a lot. The price is very reasonable, I know their profit margin is kept lower than many other sellers on the market. Their maker is highly competent. Not saying they're perfect, for sure. I would say that just the fit and finish, the functional aspect is good, but there are smaller visual elements you can improve upon to meet the traditional standards. And there's not a lot, as long as you pay attention, it doesn't require that much extra attention, but it will, definitely make the overall value step up quite a bit, because you now don't have any obvious flaw in the entire package. So there you go. If you enjoy this review, find any value or entertainment, or you are interested in the over drink, what I call OAD style review, please like and subscribe and let me know in the comments.